application. Make an appointment today and see how glamorous you can look. Call 561-409-4065 to book your appointment. Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup and Beauty Lounge is located at 233 South Federal Highway on the first floor of the Boca Grand Building in Boca Raton. The number again is 561-409-4065. Serendipity Consignment Boutique is unlike any other consignment shop you have ever seen. Lisa has the most beautiful and immaculate designer bags, clothes, shoes, and accessories. It's a designer candy store. So go check out Serendipity Consignment Boutique, Glades Plaza, 2200 Glades Road, Boca Raton, or visit their website at consignmentboca.com.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
It's the Becky and Boca Show, coming to you live every Thursday night at 6 p.m. from glamorous downtown Boca Raton. I'll show you how to live life in style in one of the country's most elegant cities, nestled right along the beautiful Atlantic beaches between Palm Beach and Miami. So sit back, relax, and let me show you how to indulge yourself Boca style. Hello, welcome to the Becky and Boca Show. I have a couple of very interesting guests with me tonight, and my first one is Dr. Arthur Handel. He's a plastic surgeon here in Boca Raton, and he does beautiful work. I went and saw his office and met some patients and saw his befores and afters, and he does just about everything. So we're going to talk to Dr. Handel. I think we're going to start with faces. So if you want to tell us a little bit about your practice and how long you've been here, where you are, and all that sort of thing.
Well, I've been here 26 years. In private practice, and I did my fellowship in, I did my plastic surgery residency in New York, and I did a fellowship in Miami with Dr. Baker and Gordon. And I was planning to go back to Connecticut to practice. I already had something lined up there.
Really?
And after doing my fellowship in Miami in the middle of January, I said, "There's no way I'm going back."
No.
So I stayed here, and I just rented a car, and I drove up the coast, and I saw Boca, and I said, "This looks like a great place.
If you're driving, if you're driving along the coast, you go through Boca, you turn around and go right back."
It worked out pretty well, and I've always had a passion for faces, but as a young plastic surgeon starting out, you do a lot of the emergency stuff, and then you start doing body contouring and liposuction and breast augmentations, and I was pretty proficient at doing liposuction. It was just starting to get popular, and all the latest techniques were coming out. So I built a good practice doing that, and gradually you get into all sorts of specialties and subspecialties, and I started getting into the faces and doing more and more of those. And right now I'm lucky. I have a great practice because it's about half is mommy makeover, which encompasses
that's real
breast
popular
surgery.
around here.
Oh yeah, breast surgery, and we do the tummy tucks.
So it's a tummy tuck combined with breast surgery. That's the mommy makeover?
It's usually the tummy tuck with a liposuction and a breast surgery, whether it's an augmentation or a breast lift or a reduction.
Right.
And we have a fully licensed ambulatory surgery center, fully licensed by the state Agency for Health Care, and we have two licensed
how does that make
rooms.
You different from other facilities?
Well, there are different levels of accreditation, but this is the one that's basically a fully licensed ambulatory surgery center. We're recognized by Medicare, by the Agency for Health Care. We get inspected several times a year, sometimes surprise inspections.
Oh, wow.
And you have to have a certain standards as far as the structure of the building, as well as the way it's run and the staffing, and we only use board-certified anesthesiologists for our anesthesia. And we also have overnight capability at the other part of our building. So, which is very convenient because you could send people home for some operations, but for instance, today we did a mommy makeover, which was a breast lift with implants and a tummy tuck and repair of an umbilical hernia. And she did great, and we're keeping her overnight. Next morning, she'll go home. She has one dedicated nurse just for her.
That stays there with her.
Stays there just for her. And then tomorrow morning, she'll go home. We also give them an injection of an anesthetic called Exparel. It's been around for a few years now, but most hospitals don't use it pretty much because of the cost.
What does it do?
It's a long-lasting anesthetic. We inject it into the muscles before we finish the surgery, into the rectus fascia and the muscles, the musculature of the abdomen.
Oh,
and
only when you do the...
For tummy tucks.
Tummy tuck,
Mostly
okay.
for tummy tucks, but it can be used in orthopedic surgery. It can be used in all sorts of surgeries, but for the abdominoplasty, we do that, and it's great because it virtually eliminates pain. They have anywhere from practically no pain to very minimal pain, and some patients haven't even taken the pain pills that we prescribe. We'll prescribe a pain pill.
So how long does that last, though? If you give an
72
injection?
hours.
Oh, wow.
72
One
hours.
injection?
One injection. It's done all through the musculature of the abdomen, and it lasts about 72 hours. And they'll take a Tylenol, or if they need a Percocet. Some people are just a little more sensitive than others, but it's a great adjunct to surgery, and even my anesthesiologist, he notices the difference once I inject them with the Exparel. He said, "Boy, I could tell just by the response to pain that I have to cut back on my anesthesia."
Oh, that's great.
So it's a real help. We're always trying to find something that'll fine tune our surgeries, make it more safe and more easy to deal with post-operatively.
Sure.
Because most patients, the first thing they ask me, they'll have their
Is it gonna hurt?
No, the first
No?
thing they ask me the next morning, when can I start exercising again?
Oh, yeah, this is Boca Raton.
This is Boca.
Yeah, I would be concerned about that, too.
They make me feel bad because
So when can they start exercising if you got a tummy tuck? If you had the mommy makeover?
they can start. I'm very conservative, so I'll tell them, probably in about 3 weeks. Everybody's
3
different.
weeks?
In about 3 weeks, they can start doing some light things. Some light
Oh,
duty
God,
things.
my
They
body
can do
would go
maybe
totally to seed in 3 weeks.
treadmill. Well, you know what? As far as the abdomen is concerned, you don't have to
You
worry
already
about
took
that for
care of
life.
it.
That's
true.
like 500,000
Okay,
sit-ups.
there is that, yeah.
But as far as light duty exercises, you could do maybe some treadmill, some walking. You
Yeah,
take
I was
it
thinking
easy.
walking might be okay. Is it the same for breasts and for face as far as how long you...
No, faces are completely different. Faces are virtually no pain from a facelift because
really?
you're actually disconnecting the sensory nerves with a facelift.
I never knew that.
It's kind of numb, and that's why even with the males,
And it stays numb for a while, right?
within 3 weeks you start getting your sensation back. You'll feel like a tingling sensation from the cheeks outward, and then you'll start to get your sensation gradually. And usually within 3 to 6 weeks, people look very good after a facelift, but we tell them it takes 6 months to a year, as with any operation, to see the complete healing and the complete results of your surgery.
Just keeps getting
So
better and
it's
better.
it's very gradual. So if you take a photograph every month, you'll see some changes. Even when you think you already look great, it'll look even better every month after that.
Yeah, I saw some photos of your patients, and I met one of your patients when I was there, and you do beautiful work on faces. So is that your favorite thing to do?
You know what? Like I said, I'm fortunate because I get to do different types
Everything.
of surgeries, and what I like about it is that if you just do one, if you're known for just one procedure all the time, it gets boring.
I would imagine so.
And
yeah.
I think that's when you kind of lose your drive for excellence. And then this way, I feel that every surgery I go into, I've learned something new, and I get a little tweaking. I tweak it,
Sure.
for the next time. So what I enjoy about faces, it's right out there, and that's what everybody
Yeah,
sees.
that's why people are so scared
And-
when picking a surgeon, because that's that's you.
And you don't want. I'm always analyzing faces, and I really do not want anybody to look like they'd had anything done. So, a good facelift, the way I look at it is I always tell my patients, this is how I preface my consultation. I tell them, this is not, the way I look at this surgery, it's a restoration operation. We want to just
Putting them back.
turn back the time. And it's just like restoring anything beautiful, like a car or a painting or a home. You want to go back to originality. And I encourage patients to bring in their photographs from when they were really young, 20, 30. And not that we're going to make you 20 or 30, but we want to see what your anatomy was like at that time, because the person that comes into the office is not the real you. The real you is after the surgery. As a matter of fact, some patients that waited too long to get this, when they get a dramatic change, at the beginning they feel a little disconcerted about it. They said, that's not really me. And I said, no, this is you. And you take out their photographs, and then they realize, and it takes about a couple of weeks to get used to it on some of the more advanced
What
patients.
do you mean waited too long? Is there a certain age that it's
Well,
best
you know,
to...
everybody thinks that some people, you know, like I might see somebody who is in their 50s and they just have a little jowling and a little bit of a neck laxity here. And, you know, I'm very honest in my consultations. I don't look to do surgery. I just tell them what they need. And then, you know, sometimes they tell them, well, what you really need is a facelift. And they'll
They're
say, but
trying to
I
do
just want a neck lift or a
piecemeal.
lower
Yeah.
facelift. They try to minimize the
like,
terminology.
this is going to be nothing. I'll
But
be in and out.
a neck lift, I mean, you can't really do
Can't
a
do
neck
that
lift
without
on
doing everything else.
Well, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
on some of the younger patients. But what happens if you have jowling and you just do the neck? First of all, to properly tailor the incision, that it has to come up almost like a full facelift incision. So you might as well do a facelift or you're going to make that incision, and then the jowling will become more pronounced as the next year or two go by.
Oh,
The neck
okay.
will still look pretty good, but then the
So
jowling,
you have this great neck.
it doesn't make
jowls hanging
sense.
Over.
So basically, what we try to do is just restore you, unless there's a feature that you want changed. And the most important thing I look at with a facelift is the eyes. I don't look at the neck first. I look at the eyes, because the eyes is what gives you your expression,
Right.
and your character and your personality.
And when those are done wrong,
well, yeah,
everybody can
and
tell.
you know, that's why poor Kenny Rogers is the poster
know.
boy for bad surgery. And what I tell patients, and I actually have a photograph of him in my book because I use that as an example. Because
So what went wrong there?
his facelift came out pretty good as far as I could tell, but it's just that his eyes were changed too much. He had hooded lids, and they changed them to open eyelids or deep set eyelids, and
Because
that
people
totally
ask
changes
for
his
that.
looks.
I know there are women that tell me that's what they want, the area to put all the makeup on.
Well, the thing is, some people have hooded lids, like myself, and some people have deep set eyes. And what happens with time, it's not that your lids are really stretching that much or they're growing. The reason why people's upper lids start to look crowding and droopy, it's because the brow is coming down.
oh,
And when the brow
so this
comes
is
down,
falling. Okay.
it gives you a stern look. And I feel that on some patients, if you just do the upper eyelids and the brow is at a lower level, you almost have like a mean look, and you almost have like a kind of a blank stare. And so the position of the brow, if you draw or if you paint a portrait of someone, the position of the brow communicates happiness, sadness, anger, tiredness. So we put it at the right level. And the big turnoff about brow lifts is that, you know, a lot of patients think that you have to make that big incision and
Yeah,
pull
you were
back their
telling me
hairline.
how you do it now.
I haven't done that in maybe 16, 17 years.
You do it endoscopically.
All endoscopic. And
So what exactly does that mean for people that are listening and watching?
Well,
you
the traditional coronal lift is when you go from ear to ear behind the
make
hairline.
a
The
cut.
Yes.
Okay.
But the problem with that is that you pull back the hairline about that much. You lose some
Oh,
hair.
so your hairline is up
Your
higher
hairline
then?
goes back, and then that's only good for people who have very low hairlines. The
Right.
hairline goes back, and then when you comb your hair, you'll feel less volume because you're taking a nice big strip of hair about 2 centimeters in
Oh, you're
width.
taking out hair. We don't want that.
And then, and if you have a high hairline, the other option is to do a hairline incision, which, if it's not meticulously done, you'll see a scar there. And that's why some of those patients have to wear bangs or get hair transplants.
Oh, my gosh.
And then the other thing is...
We don't want to make the situation
No,
worse.
no. The other thing is you can get permanent hair loss or sensation changes or itching. And so what we do is endoscopic. And when I first learned how to do endoscopic, I said, this is never going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And after I did my first
So
case,
how does it
I
work
just
if you're not
realized
removing that strip of skin?
because there are different techniques to do it, but the way I like to do it is there's 3 incisions you make behind the hairline. They're about 1.5 centimeters long, and we're careful not to damage the hair follicles. And we elevate the scalp, and the proper technique is you have to release the ligaments properly that hold the brow in place. If you don't release them properly, it's not going to go up. And then
So you're releasing
the ligaments
that are holding it. Okay.
that are attached like here to the bony rim. And then we thin out the frown lines. Instead of getting Botox, what we're doing is surgically, we're just thinning out those muscles permanently.
Endoscopically? Under the skin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do it with a scope.
Wow.
And once we do that, we the technique I use a device called an endotine, and the endotine is basically, I try to describe it as a carpet tack. It's a little triangular device that has little prongs in it, and you insert it underneath the scalp, and you pull back the scalp and you attach it to it. And
does that stay in there?
It keeps, yes,
permanently.
Well, no. What happens within 3 to 4 months, they dissolve.
Oh,
it's
wow.
made out of the same material that dissolving sutures are made out of. And I've tried different techniques with screws and with stitches, and I find this the quickest, the easiest, and the most reliable method.
Okay,
and
so you're pulling that
it saves
back and
operating
tacking it.
time.
Then, what about skin? Isn't there excess skin?
No, because what happens is you really don't have to elevate the skin that much. You know, you don't have to take a big, thick section of skin out. It only needs to be raised, a few millimeters, or at the most half a centimeter. But what we do is the scalp, if you release it on front and behind, it'll actually shrink.
Really?
The scalp will actually tighten up and contract. And after 3 weeks, those endotines, they hold the scalp in that position. And what happens is the tissue will adhere and kind of stick in its appropriate location.
Oh, you're kidding.
And, at the most, it might go back. The hairline may go back a little bit, but it's virtually unnoticeable.
And that tightens the whole upper forehead.
Yeah. And I've followed up my patients now for 16 years who've had these, and I've never had any recurrences, and it lasts a long time. I'm surprised how long it lasts. It's great.
Wow.
I love it. I'd never go back to the other technique again.
The other technique was just cutting a strip out up here.
You strip and you
Tightening.
peel down the whole forehead.
So you don't have to do that anymore.
No. I mean, there are some instances where you may have to do it if they have extremely heavy lines around here, or if there's some bone work you need to do. Like some people have very heavy bones on the front, over the orbits, where you want to shave them down. So you might want to do that technique with that. But basically, I've pretty much abandoned that technique.
Wow. You were telling me that sometimes, like someone like me that has hair that comes pretty far forward here, some surgeons get rid of that whole area of hair when they do a facelift, right?
Well, one thing there's a common fallacy about facelifts. That one of the first things patients tell me in my consultation, say, I don't want that pulled look. I don't want it to be too tight. And the reason why people look like that, it has nothing to do with the tightness. Because when you do a facelift, you want to have the proper tension. So it can't be too tight, it can't be too loose.
Right.
If you make it too tight,
Make it
the
too loose,
skin
they're not
actually
gonna be
necroses. You get dead skin because
Oh.
it cuts the circulation off. And that's why some people, if you look behind their ears, you'll see bad scarring. It's
Yeah.
not because it was stitched improperly, or it's because sometimes it's so tight that it cuts the circulation off, and that skin dies and it heals with a scar.
Oh,
So,
I didn't
but the
know
reason
that.
why people look pulled too tight is because it's put back in the wrong direction. So it's like any object. If you're putting back together, a car or anything, if you put something back the wrong way, and if it's off, your eye will detect that something is off. And the same thing with the face. So on the face, one of the key landmarks is the sideburn. And some people, they have very large sideburns, and it's okay if you pull it back a little bit, it won't make that much of a difference. But most women, and especially men, male facelifts have to be done different than female facelifts, because the incision should be made, we make it differently, and they're completely unforgiving as far as distortion. So with a female, because a woman can comb her hair
Right, you
forward,
can do all sorts of stuff.
but
to cover
still,
up.
a lot of women, when they want to comb their hair back in a ponytail,
No,
or
I
put it up in
wouldn't
a
like
bun,
it if
or
I came out with
Right.
less.
so what we do is, instead of making the incision behind the sideburn, because what happens is when you pull that back, even just a small amount, it'll pull your sideburn, sometimes behind your ear.
See, that's something I never even thought of, that you might
No.
come out of a facelift and have less hair on your face.
And that extra distance distorts this part of your face, the temporal area of your face. And then when you smile, the normal smile lines go up in an abnormal fashion instead of going, in the proper direction. So the vector is pulled in the wrong direction. So I like to go in the sideburn, and most of the time we go into the ear. And if you have a very large
Is that
cartilage,
where you put the
the
stitches?
incision inside
incision,
the ear,
okay.
we make the incision inside the ear, and then we go in the back of the ear, actually on the ear, so because that skin heals very well, and it's virtually undetectable even with your
So
hair
nobody
up.
would notice, right? There'd be a scar in here and up behind the ear.
Right. And
Okay.
I mean, the face fortunately heals extremely well. If you meticulously close your incisions with stitches underneath the skin, they're virtually scarless. I mean,
Wow.
once in a while you might have somebody that has a issue with healing, but that can be touched up at a later date. So, but for the most part, it's the face is the best healing part of your body.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the one fear, that people are going to have scars that anyone can see that
No.
they. Okay, now you were telling me about fat grafting. You do that in the face.
Well, in about 90 to 95% of my patients, we do fat graft. We've been doing it for over 20 years. And the reason why is because a young face is not just a tight face. A young face is a full face.
Full.
And you could look at, your patients' photographs when they were young. Their bodies were real thin, but their faces were full. When they get older, their bodies get a little weight and their faces
Goes the
set.
opposite.
So that's why fillers, have a very effective role in minimally invasive procedures. But the good thing about fat is the volume that you're going to use is not cost prohibitive. Because if you really think of it, 1 teaspoon is 5 syringes of filler.
Oh,
Now-
wow.
Now look at the cost of filler.
Right.
So that's just 1 teaspoon. But with fat, it's your own tissue, so it's virtually, risk-free,
Right.
and it has stem cells, and there is some degree of permanency to fat. So it has to do with technique, how it's injected, and the patient's type of fat that they have. Some patients, they have a little different, certain areas of the body have better fat than others for grafting.
Oh,
So like the upper inner thighs theoretically have more stem cells in them. So we try to use that if we can. And then you have to overcorrect to a certain degree with fat. It's not like a
because you
filler.
lose some of it.
Right, because with filler, you tend to put the exact amount that you
Right.
need, but with fat, you have to overcorrect a certain degree. I don't overcorrect too much where you're distorted. We overcorrect to a certain degree, and most of the times that's enough. And after what you get after 6 months is what you're going to be.
So it takes
remain
6
with.
months to really see how much
How much
stays
is
in there?
retained.
Okay.
But there's always something that's retained. And when we do it with a facelift, I inject it into the muscle, so it's surrounded by a healthy blood supply, and you get really good longevity, and it works better on certain parts of the face than others, like on the eyelids, the lower eyelids, or the jawline. The jawline's fantastic. And I don't even do chin implants as much as I used to because the fat works
You were
great.
telling me you can use fat to build out the chin.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And if you look at patients' photographs when they're younger, the jawline and the chin is always fuller. And that's
Yeah.
a big problem with patients. And as you don't have to overdo anything. And my philosophy is, what? If we need to put more in 6 months to a year later, that could be done under local anesthesia
Oh,
in
really?
under an hour.
Really?
Yeah. So
What if somebody just has a weak chin, but they don't want a facelift? Can you do filler in the chin without doing?
Well, for that, there's several. If they're not ready for a surgical procedure, you could do everything from putting an actual chin implant in, or you can.
But that's a surgical procedure.
Well, I'm talking about a facelift.
A facelift. Okay.
Yeah, but if you can either put a chin implant, or you can use filler, or you could use fat, or there's several different types of fillers that give great results. The only thing, they're not permanent.
Yeah.
Fat has some degree of permanency, and
Is it
you could do.
permanent when you put it in for a facelift?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a certain amount of it that will be permanent or very long term.
Mm-hmm.
And fat once you do fat grafting, it acts just like regular fat. If you gain weight,
It'll get bigger.
it'll get bigger. It'll get bigger, and if you lose weight, it'll get smaller. But even if you lose weight,
You want to
your
go to
face-
surgery at the weight you plan on staying.
Well, with any kind of surgery, whether it's body contouring or facial surgery, I always tell patients, the ideal candidate is someone within 10% of their ideal
Right.
body weight. But you have to be
they're not
realistic
gonna
because some
fluctuate.
people, for various reasons, lifestyle, health reasons, hormonal reasons, or just, that's the way it is, they can't lose any more weight. I tell people you don't want to go on these yo-yo diets. Get down to a weight that you can manage and live with and be happy
there.
with, and that's
Yeah.
when you can do your surgery. But, because if you lose a significant amount of weight, it can change your results. Things can loosen up.
Oh, wow.
And,
Wow.
like with tummy tucks, that's one operation that you can get permanent weight loss with it because,
I was going to ask you, if a person gains weight after having a tummy tuck, does it come back in that spot?
well, not really
Or does it go
because,
everywhere else and then you got
well,
this
the reason why
nice
people,
thin?
the reason why you do a tummy tuck is because of excess fat,
Yeah.
which you do liposuction for, but the major reason is loose skin, and loose muscles. And it's
Okay.
usually women who went through pregnancies. Sometimes one pregnancy can do it. So the muscles get stretched out, the fascia gets stretched out, so you have to kind of stitch it up just like a lace. You lace it up like a corset.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you a flat tummy and it brings in your waist. And then we take out the excess skin. But one of the side effects of that is when you tighten up the abdomen like that, your organs are kind of compressed. It's almost like I tell my patients, like a suitcase. You can put your clothes in a suitcase, and there's a certain amount of clothes you put in, and it closes easily. But if you have a lot in there,
I just
you have
traveled
to
last
kinda
week and I
like
had to sit on
and
it.
just- yeah. So when you have a lot of compression, your organs are compressed in there.
Sure.
Your stomach, it's a small meals will fill you up. So it's almost like
Ooh,
getting
that's
one
a
of
nice
these
side effect.
bariatric operations. And I've seen patients. I have a lot of patients who, once they've had, they'll lose some weight before the surgery.
Yeah.
They'll lose some weight during the surgery because we take out on some patients a significant amount of skin and fat.
Yeah.
And then after that, they'll lose even more because it's post-op and they don't have all their appetite back, but also because they don't feel like eating as much. And that's a sustained thing on many patients.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Plus, it alleviates a lot of back issues and back pain.
Yeah,
and,
sure. Wow.
But, the great thing about cosmetic surgery, it's not a frivolous thing. I think what I love about it is it's a life-changing operation, no matter what you do, because I feel personally that people who get cosmetic surgery live longer, happier, and healthier lives because it's motivating.
Yeah,
A lot of people, we all go through phases in our life where you try to get in shape and this and that, but there's certain things that you can't do except with surgery.
Right.
I mean,
Black skin. What are you going to do about
and I'll
that?
tell patients, I say, you could exercise all you want. They say, well, you think I need a tummy tuck? You think if I exercise more, it'll go away? Actually, if you exercise more and you lose more weight, it'll look worse
Because you've got the skin that's...
because the skin sags.
Yeah.
So, and it's just one day, and the next day they wake up, they're a whole different
It's a
person.
pretty common procedure around here in Boca. I know Boca Raton is not representative of other places, but I
Well,
know a lot of
anywhere
people that
where
have
there's
had...
people who live in the sun and outdoors, Florida, California, Texas, it's more common, it's more talked about, and people are more in tune with their health and staying in shape, and they're in boating, and so it's a different atmosphere here, but it's a very rewarding field. I mean, I really enjoy seeing the results, and
Yeah, my girlfriends, we all exercise. We do everything we can to stay in shape. But like you said, the jowls start heading south. There's nothing you can do about it. So why not fix it? I know that attitude's different in Boca Raton than other places. But
it just has to do. Well, I think that it's just more prevalent around here, and people, like I said, they dress differently. They're not covered up.
right. Well,
They,
that's true. It's
They're
humid
not
around here. You
bundled
got
up with sweaters and coats and everything else.
That's true.
But people do get cosmetic surgery up north. They just don't talk about it as much.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to someone about that. It's
Down
much
here,
more
it's a whole different
open.
thing.
Yeah,
it's a whole different thing.
It's almost a
It's
status
almost a
symbol.
lifestyle.
Yeah, right. It's part of everything. Part of going to the gym, dieting, everything you do. It's
And the other thing,
up.
I mean, people are living much longer. When I was a kid, I mean, I would be upset by a lot of people around me passing away in the ages of 50, 55.
I know.
in their 40s, and like that's something that's almost unheard of now.
Right,
The
right.
people, if somebody doesn't make it to 90, you feel like they got cheated.
Right.
And so I think it's a great adjunct to a healthy lifestyle.
And people feel good when someone gets a facelift and they come out. They feel good. It's it's confidence, self-confidence.
Oh yes.
So it's I wanted to ask you about your facelifts. We got about 10 more minutes here. You were telling me about anesthesia. You use general. There's some that use general, some that use IV sedation.
There's different, like there's some
Because people always ask me, can I do it without
There's some people that
general?
I'll actually do it under local anesthesia. And
A facelift?
Yeah, I'll give them
Oh,
a
wow.
pill. I'll give them a couple, sedatives, but they're usually people who I could tell are very tough, and I'm not doing much if I'm just doing the face part. And that's really good for someone who's already had a facelift and they just need some tweaking or a touch-up. But, the problem with this type of, anesthesia is not like it was years ago.
Right.
It's much safer. The drugs that we use are much safer. And when I was first starting my practice, we used to do sedation because that's what patients want. Oh, I don't want general anesthesia.
Yeah, everybody tells
the
me they don't
problem
want
is,
general anesthesia.
If you talk to an anesthesiologist, sedation can actually be more dangerous than general anesthesia because to properly sedate somebody, their respiratory rate goes down. They have difficulty breathing. Then you have to back off, and so it's
I
a
would
lot of
think so.
fine tuning. But the good thing about general anesthetics, and every anesthesiologist has their own little concoction, and it's an art. Anesthesia is an art. All anesthesiologists can put somebody to sleep and wake them up, but to put them asleep with very light anesthesia and wake them up like that, with no nausea, no vomiting, which is very important, especially in plastic surgery.
Yeah. Right.
It's very, so most of what they get now is propofol, which is the IV.
Sure.
And what I tell my patients that the fact that you have a tube, it's a great thing because it's guaranteeing 100% oxygen.
You mean
securing
with
your
general
airway.
anesthesia?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
securing your airway. It's safe. It's the safest thing to do.
I would think it's
And
a very controlled environment,
Right.
whereas, like you said, the other way, you really have to
Right.
monitor what's going on.
Like if we're doing a breast augmentation, it's a short operation. We use something called an LMA. It's a cuff that goes around the trachea. It's not a tube that gets inserted. So it's general anesthesia without inserting the tube all the way. So, you don't have to worry about the occasional sore throat or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for, and yesterday I did a liposuction on a woman. I did her circumferential thighs and her calves and knees. She had very large calves and ankles.
Oh, you're kidding. So
And-
you made her calf smaller.
Well, I was only supposed to do the upper thighs, and at the last minute, she said, I gained 10 pounds, and this is more prominent. And I said, okay, you think you can handle this? She said, yeah. So we tried. I said, listen, if it's going to be a problem, we'll do it another time. But everything worked well. She already ate in the morning, so we couldn't give her general anesthesia, and she tolerated
wow.
it very well. She didn't even remember what we did. And I saw her this morning. She looked great. So there's a lot you can do. But when I'm doing faces, usually I'm doing everything. I'm doing the brow lift on most patients. I'm doing eyelids. Then the thing at the end is the laser. So
I was
the
going to ask you
laser
about
hurts.
Okay.
To do a real adequate lasering, you can't just put a little topical anesthetic. It
Right.
hurts
that. So you have to do that with...
with anesthesia. So we do the whole thing, and they wake up. And we have all the safety devices, the scuds, the compression garments, and for some of the larger operations like the mommy makeovers, a lot of those patients will even give them a blood thinner. So in addition to all the other devices, but that'll help prevent blood clotting and we mobilize them right away.
I wanted to ask you, we got about 5 minutes left. You told me there's some new breast implants, something new in the field of...
Well, there are several different companies, and there's one company that it's called Sientra,
Okay.
and they have a real nice line of shaped implants.
So what do you mean by shaped? Why would
They're
you need a
shaped
shape?
because the standard implant's round, and these are the new generation of implants. So all the major companies, Mentor, Allergan, Sientra, they're all very good companies. And what patients call the gummy bears, they're the cohesive gel implants. So they're not like the old implants where they were like a syrup. Where
Yeah.
if you get a puncture, it would just leak out. This one kind of stays put. So it's a safer implant,
Okay.
less problems with it. But there are certain patients that with their anatomy, like I would get in the past some patients that their fold is very high, their inframammary fold, where their breasts sit up high on their chest. And on top of that, they have a very prominent chest up here. They have a very prominent
So you
anatomy.
would see a ridge
Well, it
on
looks
the
too
top.
big.
Yeah.
It looks
okay.
too big. And and the perfect implant for that is a shaped implant because they're more like either a teardrop or there's some that are shaped like an oval where the projection is on the bottom and very little on the top.
So you would evaluate the patient,
You evaluate the
and
patient.
then you have a choice. You're not sticking the same thing in.
And then some patients, they're borderline for a breast lift. And instead of doing a breast lift, sometimes you can get away with using a shaped implant because most of the projection is on the bottom, so it rotates the breast upwards without making it look too bulky up here. Because instead of putting a huge
okay.
implant,
Right.
you can concentrate the volume down there. But we use it because a lot of the surgery I do is revision surgery. I would say probably 40 or 50% of my surgeries are revisions, especially with breasts and noses. Do a lot of noses,
because
a lot of
with breast implants have to get them done, every 10 years at least?
Not necessarily.
No?
I'll get that question all the time, and I tell them, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So, with saline, I call it the no-brainer implant because two things can happen. Either they get hard or they leak, or you have a lot of rippling. And that's
Okay.
because of the skin, it gets a little loose. But
Okay.
if there's not a problem, you don't do anything. With a silicone implant, as long as everything looks good and feels good, you might want to get an MRI because that's the only test that's non-invasive that will tell you if you have a problem. And even that's not correct 100% of the time.
Okay.
But it's the best non-invasive test that you can do to determine whether you have a problem. But if
problem being?
well, leakage or
Okay.
but there's no specific time when you need to have your breasts done. I mean, if they're fine, it could be 10,
But some
20,
people tell
30
me they
years.
harden up. I guess that's the
No,
tissue around it.
they don't harden up as
It's the
frequently
tissue
as
around
they used to.
Okay.
The hardening is called capsulization.
Right.
They're graded from 1 to 4. 1 is perfect, 2 is a little firm, 3 is hard and distorted, and 4 is hard, distorted, and painful.
Okay.
So on those patients, you need to do something. But a lot of it is implant related, technique related.
Sure.
Sterility is an absolute necessity with this. And right now we do the no-touch technique, which is we use a device called a Keller funnel. It looks basically like the surgeon who invented it liked cooking.
Yeah.
So he got the idea of using pastry bags. And basically it's a lubricated funnel that you put the implant into it,
I've
and you
seen
make
that.
your incision, and you just squeeze it, and it slides right into the breast without touching the skin and without damaging
okay.
the implant by trying to stuff it in a little incision.
Yeah.
And this way I can use a small incision instead of going underneath the breast. And then you have to be
So where do
absolute-
you go in?
Most of the time, if they haven't had any incisions before, I like the areola because that type of skin, it's just a little more difficult to do it that way, but that skin heals virtually scarless within just a couple of weeks. The inframammary fold underneath the breast, you'll always see a little bit of a scar there, but some women, especially some of these younger women, they can get a keloid or a hypertrophic scar,
Okay.
and it can be very disturbing and unsightly for them.
Well, thank you for all of your information.
Well, my pleasure.
We have to get on to our next guest. We're going to take a little break here.
Okay.
But tell us one more time where your practice is, how people can get a hold of you. I know you have a beautiful building on Federal Highway.
We're located at 5503 North Federal Highway. We're just north of Yamato on the west side. It's a Mediterranean-looking
Yeah, I know.
building.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
And
Big freestanding building there.
Yes.
That's nice.
and,
Okay. And you have a website?
we have a website, handleplasticsurgery.com.
Okay. And I was looking on there today. There's a lot of information on there.
Yeah, we're trying. I have to keep on
You got to work on it.
tweaking it,
Okay.
But
Well, thank you very much for coming in today, Dr. Handel.
It's a
And
pleasure.
I appreciate talking to you. Very interesting.
thank you. Thank you.
Serendipity Consignment Boutique is unlike any other consignment shop you have ever seen. Lisa has the most beautiful and immaculate designer bags, clothes, shoes, and accessories. It's a designer candy store. So go check out Serendipity Consignment Boutique, Glades Plaza, 2200 Glades Road, Boca Raton, or visit their website at consignmentboca.com. You've been listening to and watching The Becky and Boca Show. Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup and Beauty Lounge in downtown Boca Raton does fabulous professional makeup application. Make an appointment today and see how glamorous you can look. Call 561-409-4065 to book your appointment. Ivy Lee's Luxe Makeup and Beauty Lounge is located at 233 South Federal Highway on the first floor of the Boca Grand Building in Boca Raton. The number again is 561-409-4065. And now, back to the show.
Oh, you look gorgeous.
Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Becky and Boca Show. I have an author here that I'm very excited to talk to, Lainey Lieberman. She is the author of Beyond the Mediterranean Diet, European Secrets of the Super Healthy. And I was reading this book on the plane last week, and I couldn't put it down. It's very interesting stuff. And the reason I invited Lainey to come in here and talk about her book is that she joined my gym class not too long ago, and I heard she was a famous author. So I started talking to her, and the only reason I was interested is because of the shape she's in. She looks incredible.
Aw, thanks, Becky.
And
so do you.
Well, thank you. But, you're the person I want diet advice from. There's a lot of people that write books, but I see her in the gym. She's one of these people that can wear the little short top and show the abdomen and all that. And so I thought, well, I got to find out exactly how she does it. So, because as we discussed, exercise is only 20 or 30% of
right.
the
Diet is
problem.
about 70, at least 70%.
Yeah, so that's more
staying
important.
fit.
Are we wasting our time in the gym?
No. You need both. Absolutely.
We're in there every day
Yes,
for an hour.
you
It's
are.
hard. That's not easy, is
It's
it?
not easy.
Yeah, that's a
But
tough
we have
one.
to do both. Diet, nutrition, and fitness. I mean, it all works
This
together.
is her book, and now she's going to tell us.
Thank
She's going
you,
to tell us
yeah.
the secrets. Can you give us
Yes.
some?
Well, first I just wanted to let you know I am a registered dietitian.
Right.
So it's really important when you get advice for nutrition and diet. There are a lot of people out there giving advice and saying they're coaches and professionals. And
Right.
you really should make
Everybody's
sure.
got a diet.
And that you're licensed in Florida as well. I mean, I'm licensed in Florida as a registered dietitian. It's really important.
Okay.
That's somebody who has the credentials.
Right.
And I have a lot of experience in medical nutrition, and I've been in the
Yeah, I
supermarket
noticed that
industry.
when I was reading the book. I like that aspect because I've read
Yeah.
a lot of diet books over the years, but yours had a lot of medical information. in it.
Yeah, I mean,
And
well,
statistics, good stuff. I mean,
exactly. But, the basis and the reason, I mean, I started when I was very young to have a tremendous interest in nutrition and diet because I had high cholesterol at a very young age.
I was reading that. It's
Yeah.
hard to believe.
I mean, and it was
How old were
scary.
you?
I was 9 years old. It was sort of really before the time when, doctors even
How did
tested.
you even find out you had high cholesterol?
My pediatrician did a finger prick. It was like the first machine that could, finger, you could find
And
out
you
your
came up with,
cholesterol.
like-
And it was really scary as a young kid. I mean,
Were you overweight?
no, not overweight. I was just my body was producing it. And at that time, it was it was a sign of success when your family had a half a cow in the freezer. And,
I remember having
right?
Nobody does that anymore.
No. But at that
That
time,
the rotary phone.
yeah, exactly. So we ate meat almost every night.
Sure, meat and potatoes.
Meat and potatoes,
that.
and eggs for breakfast, and it was butter and margarine.
But most
And-
people didn't have high cholesterol at 9 years old.
Well, they really,
we didn't know,
We
maybe.
didn't know,
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
It wasn't being
That's
tested,
true.
and it really motivated me and had such an impact on what I wanted to do in my life. And from then on, I was writing
Because you had to, at a young
because
age,
I
think
had
about
to
that.
deal with it.
Yeah.
And my parents weren't really that into understanding about what to do, and it was scary. I needed to take control of my own diet and nutrition, and how do
Sure.
I do that? So I did a lot of research as a young kid, and I
a
started
kid?
When I was in high school,
It's
I was
nice that you knew what you wanted to do at a young age.
Oh, yeah. And then I went on after, writing for local papers in high school and working as, in the heart surgical unit at a hospital when I was really 15 years old, very young, as I got older. And then, went to Cornell, studied nutritional biochemistry, pre-med, went on to New York University.
Yeah, I like that. Somebody writing a diet book that actually knows all that stuff
Yeah.
makes me a lot more comfortable than just somebody
Right,
giving their
just giving
diet
it,
tips.
right, diet tips
So
or doing
I was reading in here that you actually moved to Switzerland, right?
Yes. So after being in the food industry for 20 years as director of nutrition for America's First Supermarket and also having private practices and doing this medical nutrition research at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, my husband, and sort of being fed up with what was going on in the U.S. because it was just always a conflict about, the newest fad diet and trying to educate consumers about eating healthy, yet not insulting these fast food companies or these junk food companies, especially being in the supermarket industry. It was a challenge. So, it was interesting when my husband had the opportunity to have a job overseas in Switzerland. I said, wow,
So
I
you
can
moved to Geneva?
Yeah, I moved to
Oh, how
Geneva,
fun.
which was great, wonderful.
Now, are the Swiss in a lot better shape than the Americans?
So I did.
Yes.
I did a statistical analysis of. I decided, okay, now is the time to really study other cultures. It was an
sure.
eye-opening experience, even getting on the plane and being served
Yeah,
the
you said
meal.
the plane food was a lot better than...
I mean, it was
I was
just.
on an airplane when I was reading your book. So.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. Airlines versus
Now
everything.
you get a big can of potato chips.
Yeah, I mean it's really sad. Anyway, so having the experience and being over there and being able to really get into the culture, assimilating
See what
as
the difference is
and
between
having
the Americans.
friends there and living their life and working with farmers and chefs and
your diet is not restrictive.
no,
You
because
eat, cheese, bread, milk, all that
because
stuff.
what I learned,
Desserts?
which is so interesting, is that the Italians would never give up pasta, the French would never give up their cheese and their wine, and the Swiss are eat a lot of dairy, and they would never give those things up. Their cultural food habits for some fad diet or
Like we do.
I know we're
You wanna hear
always on the
ridiculous
next
diets
thing.
I've been on?
So I mean, it's really important to realize that you don't have to be
You don't
on,
have to. You don't have to not eat bread. You
right,
don't have
and you
to
don't have to
not,
be on
eat
deprivation, and you
sweets,
don't have to
right.
be on a paleo diet, and you don't have to be gluten free unless you have celiac disease or you really do have gluten intolerance, and you've gone
What
through
about bread? Everybody tells me they don't eat bread.
Right, there's no reason not to eat bread and pasta, but of course, it's a lot healthier to eat whole
Other
grains,
things.
ancient grains, breads made with whole grains. And, the Italians aren't going to eat a loaf of bread and then eat a huge portion of pasta. They eat smaller portions.
Yeah,
I mean,
so that
that's-
is true. They eat smaller. They eat less than us.
They do. And, again,
Okay.
Americans think about, what am I getting more value? I want a supersized popcorn. And,
Super.
and
I think I read in here that is it the French that are the thinnest people?
Well, statistically, the French, the Swiss, and the Italians have the longest lifespans. They are the leanest, and they have the lowest rates of heart disease. And Italians now are a little bit better than the French and maybe even the Swiss because they just did another.
The Italians are.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
They eat
Italians.
everything.
And they really,
Yeah, they eat well.
But they, again, even with wine, think about this. I mean, Americans go to a bar, I'll have a glass of wine,
Mm-hmm.
to be social, and they start drinking without food. Europeans sip wine slowly and they drink
Oh,
their
it's
wine
always with
with
food.
food. I mean, they
Okay.
might have an aperitif and have a little white wine with some seltzer water or some other mix in it, a juice of some sort. They don't go to a bar to drink, to get drunk. I mean,
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, things
Never
are
thought about
very,
that.
very different. And as I lived there, I learned all the different habits. So it's also about portion and dietary habits and how they food shop and how they eat out. And
you
the
said
whole,
they shop more often than we do.
Oh yeah, their refrigerators are much smaller. They're used to going to
Why are
farm
the refrigerators small?
because their living spaces are smaller. And everything.
Some government regulation. You can't have a big fridge in Switzerland.
No, but everything is, the whole lifestyle is different. They don't
Yeah.
have big homes. They're used to living in smaller quarters. I mean, there's more concentration of population. But what's really interesting is food production is local too. And people are, they love to go to the farmers markets and the local markets around town every 2 to 3 days because it's a social experience. And they get to know who's providing their food and who's growing their food. And, it's more than just going to the grocery store and filling up your basket and stuffing all the food
going to
in
the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, it's
better find an outdoor market that I can go to. And you said that in these countries, people move around more too on their feet.
Exactly. And, so another thing we can do to sort of mimic this lifestyle is to go out and walk more. And even I know Boca is not really a community where walking is a big part of lifestyle.
No,
but
I walk all over Boca.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that's great. Well, you're
But
rare.
I live in that area. So I live in East Boca, so I can do that. But you're right. People get in their cars.
They get in their cars. But even if you need to go to a destination, so park 15 minutes away.
And make walking part of it.
Make time to walk, and it's lifestyle activity and exercise that really makes a difference. It's not about going to the gym an hour. It's about
then you're done. Then go
right, and then go sit on the couch. Right, and this is what they do. I mean, they're all.
Do they go to gyms? Or do they?
Not very much.
Not like
very
we do.
rarely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a big part of their culture.
They don't need to.
They like to go skiing in the winter on the weekends. I mean, they do things where they'll go swimming in the lake in Geneva, in the summertime. It's more, again, of a social
and you said
lifestyle.
A lot of people take a walk after dinner.
Oh, and they walk before
How many of
dinner.
us go after our big dinner and let's go take a walk?
It's true.
But I can see where that would be very helpful.
Oh, yeah, and it helps digestion, and it'll help you sleep better on the activity, and again, the socialization. In Europe also, people are out socializing in the evening too. They're talking, and dinner time is not just about gulping food down. I mean, it takes 20 minutes for the brain to register fullness.
So they take longer to eat,
Oh, they
right?
do, and they don't rush you out of restaurants, and, they would never say, oh, there's another seating, you have to leave, by such and such time. It's about talking and relaxing and eating slowly and registering fullness and enjoying a meal. And it's not about, again, how quickly can we grab something and go and eat.
Well, that's what I liked about this book. It's not about deprivation. It's not like a diet book like, okay, you can only eat this much on this, per day, and you have to monitor everything. You're telling me I can eat just about anything. It's just portion size.
It's the portion size and quality. The other important, I think one of the most important things that I learned is how into they are about choosing organic, local, sustainable food. And it's not that they market it like that. It's always been like that.
What they want.
I mean, Italy never used a lot of chemicals because they couldn't afford to use a lot of chemicals on their farmlands. And, grass-fed cows were part of the culture in Switzerland. I mean, cows were fed on grass because that's the way that's the natural way.
It sounds so much healthier, too. When you
well, I mean, grass-fed, you get more omega-3 fatty acids. I mean,
I've been buying grass-fed butter lately because I've heard it's healthier.
It's so much
and before,
healthier.
I never even knew there was such a thing.
Right. No, and so that's why, again, it's not, this whole marketing of, you have to eat this way, you have to eat that way, that they've been doing things more naturally, again, for so many years.
So they don't have all the preservatives
in their food? They don't have the preservatives and chemicals. In fact, a lot of the preservatives and chemicals that we have in our food are banned and illegal to use in Europe, which is really amazing. Even like the dyes that were in M&Ms or in, some of the energy drinks that we have on the market today. I mean, you'll find those same products with different ingredients in Europe because it's illegal to do that.
Oh, wow.
Even flour. So, we talk about, can we have bread? Well, white bread that's bromated is probably really bad for us.
The shelf life of bread, that was in here too.
Yes.
You can buy a loaf of bread at Publix here and eat it for a week.
And eat it for a month.
You're saying, all right, so you're saying over there, it's good for a day.
Yeah, it's good for a day because there's no preservatives. They're using local grains.
So it's the preservatives, okay.
It's also preservatives. So everybody's looking for the magic bullet. Like,
right.
What is it that's going to make me healthy and fit and live long? And it's not about that. It's a lifestyle. And that's what Beyond the Mediterranean Diet talks about, the lifestyle.
That's what I liked about it.
Yeah, and, it's also a cookbook, so there's recipes.
A lot of good recipes in there.
Yeah, and they're easy and simple. 10 recipes for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and desserts. The Europeans, the French, Italian, and the Swiss, they mostly use fruit for desserts. So there's recipes in there for like poached pears or roasted
But I think
figs.
you have a chocolate recipe or too, don't you?
Oh, there are great chocolate recipes
From the Swiss.
Exactly.
I was like, ooh, I got to try these.
And they're easy. I mean, just a few ingredients, and it's better.
And we can eat chocolate? That's okay?
Oh, yes, but of course it's the quality again. So,
Yeah.
more dark chocolate, at least 70% or more percent cocoa. And I always recommend to use cocoa powder because that's just, there's no fat in there. You're getting all the antioxidants and the phytochemicals in the cocoa powder. And I have some recipes like for mousse in there with tofu,
Oh.
cocoa powder, a little maple syrup, some blackstrap molasses, which has a lot of iron in it,
That
and a
sounds
banana in the blender. You don't even have to cook it, and it
Oh,
makes the
wow.
most delicious mousse.
Ooh, I want to try that one.
Yeah, I mean, so there's lots of great, easy recipes in there. There's also a guide on eating out, how to shop healthy in the grocery store, and, tips about the dietary secrets of each of the 3 countries, the healthiest countries in Europe, based on, again, the health statistics. And also on my website, you can go to World RD, where I do lots of recipes and nutrition blogs so that you can stay up to date with what's out there in nutritional science. It's always based on science,
That's
backed
what I like
nutrition.
about your book. Yeah, you have a lot of scientific facts in here and a lot about nutrition because of your background.
Yeah. And, look, again, my whole goal is to help people help themselves and not think that they have to be on any restrictive diet.
That's what I loved about it.
Yeah.
It was like, I was like, oh no, another diet book. Like, what can't I eat now? But you're going through everything. Every possible thing you could want to eat is in here.
Well, and
So-
again, it's the portion control, the portion size, and the quality.
The quality of it. Yeah.
And those are very, very, very important. And, bringing it home with your lifestyle and how you teach your children and how
Oh, sure.
your kids can learn about cooking at home. I'm also a big promoter of learning how to get back in the kitchen. Cooking.
Boca Raton people don't spend a lot of their time in their kitchens, do they?
Which is really funny to me.
Is that unusual for you?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm originally a New Yorker, and I live in Colorado as well. But I mean, coming to Florida and seeing that people are not as much engaged in, preparing their own food. But you'd be
Not at all.
surprised how much salt and fat and sugar is used in restaurant kitchens.
Oh, yeah, because how can everything taste that delicious if they're not putting in what makes it taste delicious?
But you can make it taste delicious.
And why they are
That's what I
this.
promise.
Right. Okay.
If you just try some of the recipes, you don't need, if you're using good ingredients that have good quality, you really don't need to add so much salt, sugar, and fat. When you go to the restaurants,
Okay, we got to go here, but beyond
Okay.
the Mediterranean diet, and tell us how your website.
you could buy it at Amazon.com,
Amazon.com.
or Barnes & Noble. You could actually order it in the store at Barnes & Noble. Some of the stores actually carry the book in stock.
Okay.
Or go to my website, World, like the world, RD, like registered dietitian.com, worldrd.com.
This is definitely worth taking a look at because
Thanks,
you're not
Becky.
going to deprive yourself. You'll be very healthy if you eat this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Oh,
and,
it's great.
Want to see you in the
And-
gym tomorrow?
Yeah. I hope so.
Do you know what our
I'm
workout
gonna
is?
do it. No,
Are we doing
not
legs?
sure. What are we doing
I
tomorrow?
don't know. You weren't there today.
No, I
You
wasn't.
cheated.